Hey folks, hope you're all doing well and welcome to episode 22 of Recommended Album to Review. Well, first off, I want to wish everybody a happy new year and all the best for 2024. Got a great record to start the new year with, but before I get into that, let me just quickly explain how the show works. So, every week in the comments, you kind folks are nice enough to suggest some albums in there. The criteria, single record, um, studio record, something that I haven't already covered on the show. Lately, I've been getting a lot of comments for bands that I've already done, UFO and such. Yeah, so that's basically it. And then I will, over the course of the week, I'll give the album a few listens. And then I will, on the following, usually Thursdays at 6 p.m. Eastern is when these air. I will do a little, just a 5-10 minute video what I thought about the record. So for this week, we've got a record by a band that I'd never heard of. So an album I never heard of. The band is called Kepler 10. So Kepler, Kepler, number 10. And the album is called Delta V, which is a Roman numeral V's for 5. So Delta 5 by Kepler 10. Alrighty. Here's my first impressions when I'm listening to it. You know, I'm hearing a lot of Rush influences in the record. In terms of the arrangements in the songs, some of the song titles and such, it's got kind of the Rush vibe to it. Some of the the proggy elements here and there, and I'm thinking, man, these guys really remind me of Rush. And then when I went and there's not a lot of information on these guys online, by the way. And when I went, I found something about them. First thing that I read was that these guys started off as a Rush tribute band, so you can hear there's a lot of Rush influence in their music. It's pretty obvious, and some of the arrangements, some of the prog elements, but just enough prog, but not entirely prog, and kind of mixed with like some heavy rock, some really nice guitar, and so on. And then when you do some research, you find out, wow, these guys were actually in a Rush tribute band, so that kind of explains it. And just like Rush, there's 3 guys in the band, and they are James Durand, who's does bass, vocals, and keys. Now he doesn't sound like Geddy at all. This guy actually, I think, has a little bit. Not that Geddy's a bad singer, but this guy has a little more. His voice is a little more pleasing to the ear. Seems to have a little more range. He sounds more like a real, proper singer. Again, that's not a diss on Geddy. I love Geddy. Steve Hales on drums and piano, and Alistair Dell on guitars. So they're 3 guys, and just like Rush, they put out a lot of sound. Now, there's only 7 tracks on the record, so it's not a very long record. Some of the tracks are, they do hit the 10 minute mark a couple of times. But let's go through the tracks one by one. All right, the opening track is Ultraviolet. This has got a lot going on. There's a lot of different keyboard textures in this. There are moments in this record with like some of the keyboard textures that they have a really like a real 80s feel, but like not, but like a like a high quality sound wise. Not that doesn't sound dated. It sounds actually kind of a modern 80s, if that makes any sense. So there's a bit of that going on here. Just an epic tune with just a lot of parts, and it just takes you on like a trip. And man, the guitar playing on this song, the guitar tone throughout. Of course, I have to talk about the guitar, but I mean, it's just his heavy crunch tone is just insane, and his solos just absolutely sing. Just chops, like you know. I don't want to keep comparing these guys to Rush, but I mean, the guitar playing on this is like Rush level. It's amazing. Bass playing, there's not so much on this song, but other songs where the bass is right up front and he's doing the Geddy thing, kind of playing the lead bass thing. The drumming, it's like a less busy version of Neil Peart. It's got kind of more of a rock feel as opposed to sort of that very busy kind of coming up with parts feel. He plays more sort of beats, but great drumming. Just not a Neil Peart, sort of like a stripped down version of Neil Peart. But anyways, I'm going on and on. But yeah, Ultraviolet opener, great opener. It's one of the longer songs on here. It's 9 minutes. It's fantastic. So let's go to song number 2. All right, the second track is called The Stone. Now this one it's got a little bit of prog sprinkled in, but this song's just really hooky as hell. Like it's got a hooky chorus. The verses, the guitar riffs that are in there. Like this is kind of I would say radio friendly, or one of the more radio friendly songs on here. It's not, what is it? This run runs at 6 minutes. Just a really good song again, like a little more condensed than the opener, but just really, this is sort of their most radio friendly kind of pop, with the most kind of pop hooks in it. And yeah, great track, The Stone. All right, then you have Time and Tide running at about 5 minutes. This is probably the most proggy song on here. It starts off with, again, a kind of really 80s kind of sounding keyboard, which does sound kind of cool, actually. And then just heavy, relentless guitars and just fantastic riffs throughout. Yeah, this is very proggy. I mean, within the context of the record, I'd say this is probably the most proggy. Maybe because it's a lot of prog in 5 minutes. But again, not when I say prog, I'm always like Rush prog, not so proggy that it's just like an exercise and look how many time changes I can squeeze into. Like, it's still, for the non-prog fan, it's still very accessible. So let's call it very accessible prog. There you go. But yeah, good track. All right, let's move on to the next one. All right, then we have Swallowtail at a little over 8 minutes. Though this one it's acoustic, but it sounds like one of those. The acoustics is one of those, sounds like one of those Ovation acoustics. There's no bottom to it, right? So, or it could be like a piezo on an electric guitar. I mean, it might have a piezo, anyways. But but yeah, this is sort of the most mellow tune on here. It's got a nice melody to it. Might be a little bit too long. It does get heavy at the end, at the very end. The big guitars come in. It's not a bad song. The mellow part, if they maybe arranged it, maybe made that a little shorter, that would probably make it a little cooler, because that part seems to go on for a little too long. But I mean, I'm nitpicking. Still a great track. All right, let's move on to the next one. All right, then we have The Shallows at about a little over 6 minutes. Man, this could have come off of Grace Under Pressure. Yeah, some of the sound samples and some of the tones on the guitar, and yeah, you could tell these guys were a Rush tribute band, but still, they did their own thing with it. It's a pretty cool track. Not one of my favorites. It's okay. There is probably my favorite part of the whole song is the lead guitar playing on there, because man, the guitar parts that he's doing on this, he plays, there's electric and then there's some clean little, acoustic-y things that he's doing. Just a really good track. Not one of my favorites, but, pretty good song on here. So there you go. All right, let's move on. All right, then we have In the Sear and Yellow. Now, this could have come right out of, this sounds like an 80s heavy pop song. Very poppy. The hooky like crazy. This could have been on the radio in like 1986. Not a bad song. A little different than the rest of them. Not, just a straight up kind of like pop rock song, I guess. There's a couple of times, like I said earlier, the other track I mentioned earlier, where they kind of, I guess are, songs that you would consider very radio friendly, and this is probably the most radio friendly. I mean, even in the time, well, it's still a little bit long for the radio. It's a little over, well, just under 5 minutes, but but a very hooky tune. You know, yeah, good song. All right, last track. All right, then it closes with Red Skies Rise, the epic. This is like 10 minutes. It's the longest track on here. Uh, uh, you know, there's a reason why it's 10 minutes long. There's a part in this song where they get some, actor with a very, very theatrical sounding voice, and he's just, you know, I don't know, reciting lyrics or just spoken word stuff. And that goes on for quite a while. And I'm like, what are you doing? Get to the music. Like there's a lot of real cool parts and things, and you kind of want to, hear more of them or hear them evolve instead of like this pad that kind of runs underneath this guy talking for 10 minutes. I mean, I don't know what kind of message they're putting across. I'm not a lyric guy, I'll be honest with you. I mean, for me, it's all about the music and the melody and such. And, really, if they cut that part out of it, the guy reciting spoken word, I'd like the song a lot better. So that kind of ruins that one a little bit for me. Take that out of the equation, and it's a pretty cool track. So what are my thoughts? I keep harping on the Rush thing, and I don't want to like take away from these guys because they're great on their own. I mean, I'm not saying they're just copying Rush. There's influences in there, right? Not that there's anything wrong with that. We're all a product of our influences, but these guys definitely wear their influence on the sleeve. But they take it other places and they do some really cool stuff with it. But so with that in mind, I would say if you are a fan of Rush, you would probably really dig this. I mean, this Permanent Waves, Moving Pictures, kind of Grace Under Pressure, that kind of that's what I hear a lot of in here. In terms of some of the instrumentation, not the instrumentation, the keyboard sounds and stuff, and some of the parts really remind me of that. Really well done. If you do like that type of music, where kind of very accessible prog with some really good musicianship and some really good playing, and if you're a guitar fan, this is a must because the guitar playing on this is phenomenal. You would probably dig this record a lot. Out of 5, if I was to rate this, I would probably give it 3.5. Yeah, 3.5. There's just and the reason I don't rank it any higher is the there's a couple of tracks that are okay, but they're not great. But there are some tracks on here that are like fantastic. Like the opener, Ultraviolet, is incredible. For example, The Stone is really good. Time and Tide is really good. There's some really good tracks in there, but it's not consistent through the whole. And there's only 7 songs on here. So out of the 7, you've got 4 that are really good. You got one that's pretty good, and then the other 2 are like okay. So, but there you go. Yeah. So if you like that type of music, Kepler 10, KEPLER number 10. This record is called Delta 5. 5 is the Roman numeral V. So there you go. So check it out. So I want to thank the subscriber that suggested this to me. Thank you so much. Yeah, so if there's a record you'd like me to review, make sure you throw that in the comments. Please hit the like button. Please subscribe. I got way more people that watch this channel that aren't subscribed to it. So if you're one of those people, just hit the subscribe. Doesn't cost you a dime, and it'd be much appreciated. All right, we'll catch you next week. Cheers.